Okay, so we're now live on YouTube. Like to call the April 16th Advisory Committee of Templeton meeting to order. Can we do Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening, everybody. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Deb sent those out probably a week or so ago. Anybody have any questions?
Can you hear me now, Tony?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, because I had a little trouble getting on.
Okay, yep, you're all set now, Will.
Okay.
Welcome. Okay, anybody have any questions on the meetings or comments, meeting minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last week.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Amy?
I
We're
vote
voting. Yeah, okay. Will?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Deb?
yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
You're abstaining, right? Oh, were you on last week?
No, that's right. I was not. I abstained.
Okay, and then I vote yes. Okay, we got the budget versus actuals. Did anyone have a chance to go over that?
All bets are off on it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
They don't mean
Yeah.
anything.
yeah. You know
The
how I
one
feel.
thing that did notice, and it was mentioned, was that the ambulance receipts didn't change
Okay,
from month to month.
that seems odd.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay. And speaking of, I guess because it kind of goes into budget, I did email Adam and Carter about are they looking into what this COVID-19 is going to have on revenues for the rest of this year and starting into next year. And he said they, you guys saw the email that they are looking into it. I guess I got an email from him today that they're had a meeting with the finance committee. I think it was yesterday. And right now they don't feel like it's going to be much of an effect. But we'll have to wait and see.
I can't believe that because the state is already seeing issues.
Okay. Right. And they're going to put a memo out. I'm sorry, I was distracted. There's somebody out and putting something in my front lawn. So, so I'm just telling you what he told me. I kind of agree with you, Will. I don't know how we can't really be affected. I mean, obviously, food tax receipts are going to be down, and not knowing what the economic impact on townsfolk are, it's going to be kind of, I think it's tough for them to really even say yes or no right now.
That shows you that they don't know.
Well, I don't think they do.
If they haven't got a comment back at all, I would say that they don't know, period, as to what the effect is. And this is going to be long lasting. I'm banking on the fact that we're going to see this impact for quite a while, one. And number two, I don't think we're going to be opened up in early May or at the end of April.
Oh, I agree with that.
I mean, if anybody knows about curves, what goes up, flattens out, has got to come down, and there's still effects happening.
I'm just reading Adam's email. So he basically says, as of today, they look good. They've looked at finance team went over the cash flows for the rest of the fiscal year. Now, being this so late in the fiscal year, maybe for the rest of this year we'll be okay. But I will reattack with them and find out, what are they looking at for next year?
Did they not vote that they can end up putting off real estate taxes until June 1st?
I didn't have a chance to watch their meeting.
Everybody else seems to be doing that. It's that they're taking, putting them off. I mean, Gardner's already done that. And I hadn't seen it either, Tony. If that's putting it off to June, they know they're not going to have some money come in, and that could eventually impact us. And the fact that some people are not going to be getting back to work, are they going to be able to take and end up paying the real estate taxes on unemployment checks? I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. In fact, before I came up on here, they were talking about how they're going to reopen the economy, but I think honestly it's too early for that.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
I just want to let you know I'm following the live feed on YouTube, or trying to do,
Okay.
at least the comments. So I know Michael Curry is out there. So he said, yeah, will I get it? Those votes will be addressed.
Okay.
Is there anyone that's currently going point with the town as far as getting in touch with the small businesses and that throughout the community that have been affected by this, so they can be applying for and making sure that they're getting the right paperwork to apply for aid in the when they do get around to being able to reopen?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would say we don't have anybody that's doing that. Maybe the EDIC, but I don't think that's their thing.
And they're so
Um,
new that I don't even know if they have a charter yet.
Tom, I can tell you, I asked that very question today and I got back some sort of a response basically by Adam saying that he's been playing contact for the very few people that have contacted the town. Very few businesses that have, I guess.
So it sounds like they're waiting for businesses to contact the town for help versus the other way around.
And on to the point, if I might, Tony, what you had were just talking about, I just received a thing and I just forwarded it to the members of the advisory committee. And Tom, I don't have your email at present. So if Tony, you could send that to me,
I will.
I'd appreciate that.
I will.
But I just forwarded you, and you guys probably already have it, but I just got this from DLS today on the city and towns. And it talks about financial management, and it goes right into cash flow. And it says, due to the current unstable economy, cash flow may be severely impacted. And then it goes on to say what the treasurer should do in the town, and then forecasting assumptions. And it goes into all the things that they advise local cities and towns to be doing at present. And, I would wonder if we're doing many of them, would be my question.
Yeah. I will. I'll forward this to Adam. Or did you already do that?
No, I have not forwarded to him.
I'll forward it to Adam and make sure anything that if you send anything to the advisory committee, Bob, Tom will get it. He should get it anyway.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
As far as the VBA, if you look at it, and I just scroll through it real quick, I don't understand how come it's not more updated than it is, because if I look at it, it does not seem to reflect where we should be at this particular time for the end. I mean, we're going through 3 quarters. We should be, at least salary should be 3 quarters for most departments.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Will. We're seemingly like about 12% behind, which in some departments is understandable because we've been out of employee for a period of time, but across the board, they do seem to be down quite a bit.
I mean, Bob, I had to take and end up looking at this and saying, wait a second, the town hall is closed. Nobody can go in and bother any of the people that are there. They should be caught up on their work. Maybe that's a wrong assumption. I don't know.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
sorry, I'm just going to take a step
Okay.
back with regards to notifying small businesses for help. Mike is saying that memos went out to small businesses and you can check the website.
Okay.
So just wanted to update that.
All right. Thank you, Deb. Yeah, if you could keep monitoring YouTube, because I don't have it on. Yeah, I guess, Will, if we want to ask the accountant why some of the areas that should be 3/4 expended aren't, we certainly can ask that question. Anything else on the B?
I mean, I may be the only one that's thinking that.
No, I think it's a good point.
If everybody's thinking that, I think we should put that out from the advisory, saying, hey,
Okay.
the advisory has looked at it and they're questioning that. If I'm the only one thinking that, then I don't want to think and end up going and ask the question if that's not pertinent.
You're not the only one thinking it, Will.
Do some of the departments, are they listed and they pay out stipends that are only paid out once or twice a year? Will that account for some of that, or is it?
There's no stipends at all. The only stipends that you're going to see is in the budget for this coming year is for the selectmen. As far as the general fund goes. I mean, the sewerage and the electric and water, they're working on their own budget, so that doesn't affect the town. And they do get stipends because it comes out of their budgets versus the town's budget.
Okay, I have the question. I will send it to the TAs and the town accountant. I usually like to send the questions to other departments through the town accountant, or the town administrator rather, since they support them. So this way they're informed of what's being asked and then they can follow up.
You're going to
Okay.
get a spin.
Okay. Anything else on the budget versus actuals? Okay, how about the draft warrant? We should get the real one next week is what I'm being told. But I still haven't seen them officially moving town meeting and probably town elections into June.
They have, or they haven't decided yet?
I haven't seen that.
Well, they put it out there, but it's not hard and fast. You haven't seen the selectmen weigh in on that at all.
Not yet. They may do that at their next meeting, Will, when they approve the warrant. At that time, they may set a new town meeting date.
The only problem I think that might come up with redoing the voting on the warrant and then moving the town meeting is how long can there be in between before the warrant's not, how close to town meeting does it have to be voted on?
Well, we're supposed to get it at least, if you look at the old bylaw, at least 30 days, if not more, before the town meeting. So
Right.
that would put us into early May, right?
End of May. Actually, the end of May, Will.
In the May?
Right. And that's why, I think they sort of took call it a gamble, if you will, about waiting till the 22nd, at least that's the latest date I heard, to get us the signed warrant, thinking that, I want to say June 17th was the date they were floating for town meeting.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that'll give us plenty of time to look at it, have a pre-town meeting, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. May.
I'd like to ask a question. I don't know if anybody here would have an answer to it, but it's something that crossed my mind and I haven't been able to look for an answer. should let's say the warrant and the budget be compatible? Because it seems to me that, they should. And if I'm looking, unless I'm missing part of the budget, if I look at the fiscal 21 budget and I look at the draft warrant, they don't match numerically, and there's a deficit involved because the school number is significantly higher in the draft than it is in any budget document that I have.
Okay.
It's about $80,000, best case scenario. Just, so
Well-
I just,
Yeah, I think the numbers should match. I mean, less the stuff, the bills we pay.
well, right, and that's kind of my concern here, because I mean, as far as I know, the financial management plan says they're supposed to present a balanced budget, and if they don't present a balanced budget, they're supposed to present a 5-year plan to get to a balanced budget. And I don't see any of these things going on, and I haven't heard any discussion on it. So I just don't understand how we have, in the fiscal 21 budget, we have something like 6.611 million plus $167,000 that we allotted for the increase. And here we have 6.929 million. Those numbers don't add up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if when they put the draft warrant out, that the school department hadn't certified their budget yet.
Well, they've had time since they certified to update this budget.
Well,
It's had 4 updates.
Okay,
Well, this is updated. It's the budget that's not. It's the warrant's updated. The budget's not updated.
right. So I'll reach out and ask the question of which is it, the budget that's off or the information in the warrant that's off?
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
Hey, Tony, I'm just going to step back for a minute. Mike did make a comment that all town clerk recommendations will be heard and voted on April 22nd.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's what I thought. Okay, so I'll send them an email on that also.
Yeah, to me, there's some things on the warrant that shouldn't even be considered at this time, with the fact that we don't know about the revenue, especially, I think it was Article 2, when they're looking for seed money for the recreation, and we're at a point here where we don't even know how, for this operating budget for 2020, whether we're going to end up having money or we're going to have to take and float money around.
Right, well, that's true, and then, that's what they've got to figure out and present to us.
Have they talked to the different department heads to see if different departments going to need additional funding due to this?
I believe they're having those conversations. And then, one of the things I think I put in an email to Adam was, if, for example, the fire department is incurring additional costs because of this, is there state money that can be refunded for that, emergency funds, since we are in a state of emergency, et cetera, that maybe that there's federal funds that flow to the state that flow to the town.
They always have the option, Tom, to take and come to the advisory committee for the emergency reserve if there's money that wasn't budgeted and it wasn't anticipated. In this particular time frame, that's where, to me, we should see something if they're having problems with their budgets.
Okay, I know there's also, they can, if the treasurer sees that they're going to be overspending due to this, I believe they can speak with the DOR and they can actually run until the 75% reimbursement comes back from the state down the road for the state of emergency.
Yeah, I go with what you guys say. I don't know the answer to that. But what they've said, I mean, what Adam told me was, and it's going to be in a memo, that between now and the end of the year, all departments feel like they're okay. All right, anything else on the draft warrant? Remember, we'll get the one voted on. It could change a little, it could change a lot. So Bob, maybe that, I'm still gonna ask the question, Bob, but maybe that could answer what you're asking.
Yeah, like Article 2, the question is, should we be asking for more money for 20 for things that are not necessarily something that we have budgeted for?
Well, I think we got to wait to find out what the projected revenues and what they think are going to happen, or is that something you vote on, but you put a caveat on it that, it's ensuring that we have a certain level of funding.
Well, Article 2 of this, he basically deals with this year's operating budget, not next year's.
Okay.
What are the additional, do you know what the additional COVID expenses are for the select board? I see litigation and COVID. Is there anything specific, or did they not share that yet?
They haven't shared anything with me. All right, so we'll look forward to getting the real warrant next week, and then we'll go from there. Any old business?
The only thing I can think about old business at some point along the way, I mentioned it before, we're going to have to address looking at the budget and making our recommendation. And we haven't started that process even.
And
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the one thing that I would say is that I know this is, let's say, poor timing for this necessarily, but prior to the COVID pandemic taking over the town, kind of, we had a few things in place. We were reviewing some of the intermunicipal agreements.
Right.
We had talked about the ad hoc committee, and we had decided with the Board of Selectmen, I believe it was, to push it back until somewhere around August or September, because there was going to be a meeting of the minds of some sort.
Right.
And I think we've gone by that myself, but I just wanted to make sure we keep these items in sight and on the future agenda,
Okay.
however we do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
When we think it's going to be appropriate to talk to them, when I send out the email for call for topics, just pop it on there, and that'll be a good reminder.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, let's see. Mike just reemphasized that, if we have questions regarding the budget, to submit those to the Board of Selectmen or to the TA.
We will. Yep. Okay. Any other old business? I think at some point we're going to end up discussing whether we are going to put an advisory committee budget forward. I'm wrestling with the value added to that.
That's
I'm
our
not-
job. We have to. If we don't shake your head. I can see you shaking your
I
head.
know you can see me shaking my head, Will, but I just don't agree with that.
Then what's the use of having this committee if that's not, and it's stated that we're supposed to be making a recommendation for the budget? You want to not, you want to not do that?
But if I agree with the budget that they put forward, is that not me recommending putting one forward?
Then we better sit down and say that.
Well, okay,
There's things I don't agree with on the budget.
okay.
I may be the only one, but there's things I do not agree with on the budget at this particular time. And this, where we're, as far as finances, where we're going. It doesn't make sense to do that.
Okay, do you want to give an example?
Yeah.
Okay.
Selectmen stipends. You want to give money to no-show people? I don't. And there's a lot of people that think of the same thing. I'm not the only one that's thinking about that.
I don't disagree with that.
It doesn't make sense to take and end up giving one group stipends when we have a tight budget going forward in all these years. It doesn't make sense.
Right, but doesn't the town vote on that?
That's true,
So
but
our
at least
but I think, I don't want to speak for everybody. I probably could speak for you and I will. My vote would be no stipends for the select board.
well, the town a number of years ago voted no stipends, period.
Yep, and then they got a warrant article to put it back on.
They slipped that one in, and people didn't end up reading it very well. And you know that, and I know that.
I agree with you. Everything I'm reading, I don't think most of the select board are going to take the stipend. However, if it's theirs for the taking. And I think that the will of the town right now is no stipend. So
It's ridiculous to take and have selectmen sit there. I'm not going to take the money and still have a goddamn warrant article that says stipends. That does not make sense.
I agree with you.
That shows that these people are out of touch with what's going on.
Okay.
I guess I may be the only person that thinks that, but that's
Nope, you're not.
on this committee. But I know there's a bunch of other people. They have gotten to the point where they are sick and tired of how things were run, and they even when they have come to vote in the past, things have changed totally from what the vote is. And we've seen that time and time again. You saw not too distant past, you saw it on a dump body that was never bought, and where'd the money go? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Okay. I don't disagree with you on that one. In fact, I agree with you 100% on that one.
And we should stay that.
Well, we will. But that's kind of, if it's a separate warrant article, our recommendation to the town to vote yes or no, having the whole committee weigh in on that, kind of tells the town what we think about that specific line item.
Well, as I say, they got it lumped in with other stipends, which I mean, you're not going to take and end up not paying your town clerk, and you're not going to take
Right.
and end up saying that you can't pay the sewage when the sewage commissioners have that in their budget. I mean, that's
Okay.
pure and simple. But then they slide in the selectmen's on that also. But it's in the budget. It's either,
But we could make it. We can always make an amendment to that.
well, we didn't do it last year.
Do they still
That's
go
what-
line by line and you can hold certain line items, or do they do it all
Yeah,
together?
you can. Well, you can make an amendment to a certain warrant article. So you would just say, as read, except take this off.
Well, they don't do Tom, they don't do the budget like they used to when we used to take and end up going article, the budget, and we used to take and end up account by account, and someone would say whole, and we would go back to that. They don't do that. It's just selectmen's budget. Nobody gets to see all the underlying accounts. The only people that get to see it are the selectmen and us. And they put it on the town website, and they expect people, and there's a number of people that don't have access to computers to take and see what's on the town website. And I know a number of them.
Well, except for the fact that with the COVID, it shut down, which is, let's just say that's sort of the off thing. They do have the opportunity to go into the town and look at the budget.
I was just asking because I know how it used to be before I when I lived in town before previously, so I didn't know if it was still done the same way or not.
Yeah,
So kind of what we've done now is we do a joint meeting with the select board. When people present their budgets, we have opportunities to ask questions about the different budgets. Will's kind of old school when it comes to this stuff, and he's got a lot more experience in this than most of us, so I do listen to him regardless of what he thinks.
Well, we should look at the individual accounts, and at least, and if we agree with him, Tony, is to say to go through that budget and say, yeah, we agree with this one, or we don't agree with that one, and that putting it through. I mean, you ended up saying, well, come up with a line for us to take and make our recommendations. I spent quite a bit of time to do that, and I ended up doing that, and I sent that out to everybody. But now you want to take and back off from that. I mean, I don't agree with that, but that's.
I will go with the will of the committee. I don't make the decision.
First of all, I don't remember getting a document like that from Will with numbers. Maybe I did and I just didn't see it with all the other stuff coming in, but I don't remember getting that. And then just to backtrack just for a second about the Board of Selectmen stipends, not about whether or not I agree with them, but that was a separate vote at town meeting, either last fall or last spring, because it came up and it was discussed and people were giving their opinions about it and it still went through. So I think this item on the warrant right now for this next meeting is simply to expend the money. Whether or not they get it is no longer on the table. That was a separate warrant article. And in order to have it called back or have it taken out, I don't think we can just simply say strike this line item because it was voted back in recently, within the last year, I think. So I'll have to look it up and see for sure, but I wanted to just bring that up about the stipend. And then, Will, I apologize. I don't remember getting a document from you with revised numbers on it.
Well,
I
didn't have revised numbers, Amy. What I did was when Adam put it out and he opened up, so there was no password protection. I went in and put another column for every account, and also at the top level, so that when we go through the budget, that we could either agree or whatever, and it would roll up into that account, into the higher level account, and that was sent out a number of months back. If you want, I can end up sending that out to everybody, but everybody should have that already.
I'm sure I have it. So you're just talking about a revised spreadsheet with nothing in it except for an empty column that you created?
Right, and all I did is put in like a 1 just to check to make sure that anything that we put in there, if we agreed with the number, we put that in and it would roll up to the top level document. And it, just to show everybody that it was working for each account number. And I sent that out right shortly after Adam opened it up so we could end up putting our number in to the omnibus budget.
Okay, then I'm sure I have that.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't really see the current wisdom, and I'll just say it. I don't see the current wisdom of going line by line through a budget that I sat in an online meeting for 8 or 9 hours listening to every single thing.
That's not what I have. That's not what I advocated. I advocated is you go to an account number and you put in, if everybody agrees on what's on there, you put that into our column. If there's something that's questionable, then we vote on it and we put a different number in and it rolls up to the omnibus budget. It's still just looking at the entire account number and saying, do you agree with everything in this account? If you do, then we put that number into each column and it rolls up to our recommendation. A simple thing like that.
Well, if it's going to be done in that way that you describe it, I can get behind that as an action for this committee. But I don't want to sit and argue whether or not the police need whatever. because that to me serves no purpose, because not only do I not feel like I have any authority for that, but it's been done. It's happened already. So if you just will, if you're advocating going in and just saying thumbs up or thumbs down, then I can get behind that action.
Well, there's some that I don't agree with, that there was cuts made by the TA of the budgets where he took out monies, and I'm talking as an example, fire EMS, and you've seen this in social media, and I have to agree, is that you don't cut money from a department like that to the point and then not use and say that you're going to take the ambulance reserve and just put it into the general fund. They got money there that they're bringing in. It should be used for them. Period.
Right. You're absolutely correct. However, a couple, was it about 3 or 4 years back, that it was a year or two after they voted the ambulance receipts going just to the fire department, that there was another vote that put it into the town general fund. And I've seen those same things, and it's like, well, why? That was originally voted for a specific reason, and Jeff addressed it at a couple selectmen meetings ago. I believe that the Board of Selectmen, I haven't seen the final warrant, so I don't know, are not going to put it on a warrant as a warrant article to put it back into the ambulance receipts, back into the fire department for their needs. But I sort of got the impression that there might be a citizen's petition regarding that. So that was on one of the meetings. I think, Amy, you were on that also. So evidently, will both Chief Dickey and Chief Bennett, to keep the town budget balanced, agreed to those cuts in their departments, not willingly, I'm sure, kicking and screaming, but they're trying to, be good stewards of the town's money also, and so I think that's what happened. If you look, almost every department took a proportional amount to their budget as what they call the lump sum disallows. And I think the TA looks at the budgets and then he goes and says, okay, who can not, I don't want to say suffer, but who can handle a cut the most? And that's how they get to their balanced budget. Whether you agree with that or not is a different thing.
Unfortunately, when it comes to making cuts like that, it seems like a fair way, but there are, and obviously I may be a little biased sometimes in public safety, but there are certain things that unfortunately, especially in times like this, are more important than others. And it is basically the job of those people in charge of the town to make those hard decisions. And even though, in my opinion, it's nice to cut across the board and everybody takes a 7%, that, whatever cut, that percentage cut can be a lot more devastating to the bigger budgets, even though that's where you get your money from. Unfortunately,
It wasn't a percentage across, Tom. It was what the administrator felt that he wanted to take and end up disallowing.
Right, but I don't think they did it in a vacuum, Will. I mean, I do believe that they talked to both of the chiefs. Yeah, when the chiefs saw that number, I don't think that it was a surprise to them.
No, but sometimes there's a difference between this is the number or this is the number. If you don't agree to it, you lose an employee. And depending on how it's presented to them will depend on how they agree on things.
Right. I could follow up with, I know Adam actually did the budget this year, so I don't know if he was involved with the lump sum disallowed or if that was Carter's.
That was Carter.
Mr. Chairman, we also have to remember that according to the financial management plan, there's 5% built into the budget to roll to free cash. So maybe Carter knows where that is built in.
That's a good point.
I don't.
All the cuts that he made.
Well, I guess you could, at the end of the year, Bob, you could kind of look at the end of year summary and kind of figure out who underspent and That'll kind of tell you where it is. It tells you at least for the last year.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we'll maybe at our next meeting, we'll go through the budget department by department. And if you would just resend that that spreadsheet out to everybody. This way Tom will get a copy of it. And we'll just, it'll be a little bit longer meeting, but we'll probably hold that as the only thing on the agenda. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, what if we,
Yes.
I don't know if this is out of order, but what if we propose to do that for the 30th, since that's the fifth Thursday of the month? It's like that extra
Okay.
meeting,
Yeah.
because the 30th, April
Okay.
30th is a Thursday.
Okay. As long as when we get to that next meeting, we agree to have a meeting on the 30th, we can do that.
Yeah.
Any other old business or open issues? Will?
The only thing is on the 30th, I'm not sure because I may end up being in a funeral. My aunt may be buried in, I'm not sure with all of this. So I'm not, we're in flux on that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that your aunt passed away. Our condolences to you and your
Yeah,
family.
she passed away in April, and they can't bury in St. John's in the wintertime, and we had scheduled it for April 30th, and with the hopes my son from Florida could be here, but with all this going on, I don't, in talking with the funeral director, he doesn't even know if we're gonna end up having it then or not. So I'm up in the air on the 30th.
Okay, well, just let me know as soon as you can, Will. I
Yep.
can send out, with open meeting laws, kind of relax a little bit. We could cancel that meeting, even up until I think it's 48 hours prior. So if that's the case, if you're not going to be available, obviously we want you there for that. So you just let us know your availability.
Okay.
New business. Anybody have any new business? I do have a question regarding some stuff I saw on social media about releasing how many people in Templeton by the Board of Health. Did anybody happen to see the Board of Health meeting?
I did.
watched it.
So when they basically said they weren't going to release any numbers, did they state or did they cite any legal statute or anything of why they couldn't?
No.
Or was it just they don't want to?
Because if I might, the thing that was said by Ms. Crocker was that if they release Templeton, it'd have to release all the abutting towns, because you have to go to other towns in order to get anything in Templeton, and without doing that, it wouldn't make sense. And then the other member chimed in and said something along the lines of, if we gave them a number, then they could think we're over the hump and relax themselves, or they could think we're before it and get too panicky. So we shouldn't, we should just stay with what they stated the governor suggested, which I contest is incorrect. But anyway, that's what I heard.
That I heard the same thing, that the state guidance from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health was to not release the numbers. And though I can't say I saw any regulation from what I did read through some news outlets, that was the case, and that they told towns not to release it, but that it ultimately was up to the towns. But I agree with Bob, and that they explained they didn't want people to become complacent if they were releasing numbers.
Rona Jane had made up her mind before that meeting. I'll state that, in fact. But then you end up seeing the state put out numbers for every town.
Yep.
And we see our number, and the town couldn't give us that number, and the state did. That tells you something about your Board of Health.
Right, but the state reversed their stance. So the day that the state numbers came out, the state came out and said, we're reversing our stance and releasing the numbers. So they weren't releasing those beforehand. They just changed their minds and decided to release them.
Correct. If I may step in here, that's what I believe too, Deb, is that the state reversed their thinking that they were not going to release the town numbers. They were leaving it to the towns. But they did not at any point preclude the towns from reporting the numbers themselves. Actually, I think it's Margaret Sutter, who is the Health and Human Services lady. She stated at the meeting on March 27th, 9 o'clock, I read that because Lori suggested it said something different. But she suggested that nothing stops towns from reporting whether they have X amount of, confirmed or deaths or whatever, even back then. So I just think our Board of Health was acting on feelings rather than laws.
I have to
So-
agree with you, Bob.
Are they the sole authority? I mean, can the Board of Selectmen request the information and if they want to release it, release it? I mean, I don't see what the big deal is if you sit there and say 25 people in Templeton have tested positive. You're not giving anybody names. You're not giving any personal information. I think it's just something people wanted to know. What they're
There
going
was-
to do with the information, I think there's arguments both ways. You're not going to do anything. You're going to do a lot with it, but that's an individual choice.
There was a separate entity that people voted for, and they don't answer. They're not supposed to be answering to the selectmen. Period.
Okay.
That's why we elect them separately.
I guess I'd like to know what their qualifications are too. I'm not saying that they're not, medical professionals, but I think in a case like this,
Tony, I agree, because at first, when I first questioned it, privacy was what was thrown up as the reason. And I was like, I'm asking for numbers. 6 does not have a right to privacy. So, and once you got through the privacy issue, it was, now it's, somebody could interpret it this way. And then it started turning into, well, they could feel this way and all this. And then you just knew it was a, round and round, and there was no actual end in sight. It was just the endless fight with changing targets.
yeah, I know that when I actually saw the number, I saw on social media, some people thought it was way lower than they expected. Personally, I thought it was a lot higher than I expected for Little Templeton. But
Well, you look at all the rest of the states, and I looked at, it's the towns, for towns our size, we were on the higher side. Now, I don't know why, and I don't think all the numbers were reported, because I know right on my road, 2 people that I am aware of that are friends of mine, both came back from a cruise and ended up suffering from all the symptoms. And she was sick for 5 weeks, and he got sick a week after, and they're just getting over it now.
But
okay.
now I'll say this, I just, and I was wondering the same thing about the numbers, and I just happened to look, and it was prior to this meeting actually, was looking, and I found a map that, had all the numbers on it from the state, the state release numbers. And if you look, it really is the Route 2 corridor. The cities and towns along the Route 2 corridor, and the hotspots along like Mass Pike and so forth, that, the route of infection, you can see it going right down the highway. It's greater, east of here, and it dissipates west.
Right.
So I don't know if, actually Phillipston's on the high side too, I think, for,
Right.
as far as the listing goes, and
I agree with you.
why,
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on that. I mean, I think that I get the Board of Health has a responsibility. I personally don't think releasing a number was going to cause mass panic in the town. The townspeople, I would say the majority of the people that everything that I saw wanted to just know the number. No one ever asked, oh, but you got to include names or anything. So hopefully they'll take this as a learning experience. And
Hey, Tony.
yes,
So Mike cited Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 104. I'm just going to read it. If a disease dangerous to the public health exists in a town, the selectmen and Board of Health shall use all possible care to prevent the spread of infection and may give public notice of infected places by such means as in their judgment may be most effectual for the common safety. Whoever obstructs the selectmen, Board of Health, or its agents in using such means, or whoever willfully and without authority removes, obliterates, defaces, or handles such public notes which have been posted shall forfeit not less than $10 nor more than $100. So I don't know if he's referencing a law that would pertain to how the Board of Health operates, but I just wanted to acknowledge that he put that in the comments on YouTube.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Okay. I don't have any more comments on that. Anybody else? Okay, our next meeting will be the 30th of April. As of right now, depending on Will's availability, I think that's very important that Will be there for that, because we're going to probably just talk about the budget. Any closing comments by anybody?
Well, thank you
Stay
for thinking
safe.
of me. Thanking you for thinking me about Tony, but it shouldn't be predicated on just me. This committee has got the obligation to the town to take and end up making a recommendation. Whether everybody agrees with the budget or disagrees, we need to take and end up stating that and putting it in on the omnibus budget. In the story. That's our job.
Right. So I personally would like to have you there, Will, because I think you obviously have done a much deeper dive into the budget than I've been able to, and may have some places that you'll bring up that we maybe just haven't thought of. So if it's delaying it a week to do that, I don't think there's going to be any harm in that.
I mean, I think what I would like to see, again, I'm only going to speak for myself. If Will is willing to, since he says he's already done the dive and done the numbers, to get it into that form and send us his numbers, even if it's just one column, he just sends us the one column and tells us where to line it up so that I can take my sheet and his numbers, then it could expedite our discussion as well. If we all have what he sees.
Yep. And a
as
little
the
brief
numbers.
explanation.
Excuse me?
A little brief explanation of why he thinks the number should be X, Y, and Z.
Well, yes, if it will expedite a meeting, especially since we're held to this format, we can't be at a table, we can't really engage eye to eye in a discussion in that way. It could be helpful to have that as a starting off point for this specific budget discussion. Because I'm going to be honest, Will, I feel like I've done the budget. I was at that long meeting online, and I feel like I've been over the numbers. I'm not going to say whether I agree with them or disagree with them. That's not what we're talking about. But I personally don't think that this format especially is conducive to several hours of round robin discussing. And I'd like to see it sort of laid out the way you imagine, Will, if possible, if you have time to do that, so that we can start there and move our discussion forward. That's just for me. That's my request.
Well, I understand that, Amy. But our job basically is as advisory, and if you look at other communities, they go through the budgets per se, and I understand that you went through that session and you were happy with it. That's not necessarily how we should end up approaching that. That may be your thoughts on it, but this committee is not scheduled to take and just go through that and say, okay, everything is good. It's not how it's supposed to work. If the rest of the committee believes in that, I guess I'm the minority. And I'm telling you, there's people out there that when I talk about this, they feed back to me. I get calls from people, and it's usually the older people in this community that basically said is, you're right on schedule. That's your job as far as the committee. We expect you to go through that budget and make your recommendations. And they don't necessarily agree with giving it a rubber stamp and saying, okay, you went through it one day, now put the numbers in and just hand it off. There should be some discussion as to, hey, I think that number is too high. Or, hey, that allowance is too much. Maybe we need to take and change that and change some things in the budget. That's just my thoughts. I know that's a little different than what you're thinking, Amy, but at least we should end up having that discussion go through. I'll do what I can, but I got a lot on my plate here with trying to take and end up handling with my aunt's affairs, and I'm in the middle of actually taking and doing a lot of stuff with her stuff.
So I understand where you're coming from, Will, but I think a lot of times in order to make some of the decisions or looking at it, we only have the information that we're given by the people to make a decision on whether we think their budget's right or not.
Well, I even hear back from some of the members, the past members, and saying, "Hey, listen, we used to go through and ask all those questions, and you're right on. We should be questioning everything as to why they're spending it, especially especially when you don't have enough money, allegedly."
Right, but I kind of, and I agree to some degree, but I do agree with Amy. This is Deb, and I feel like we had that opportunity to question why they were spending either so much or too little that day that we had them in front of us, that long budget period where we're doing that jointly with the Board of Selectmen. So I think that at this point, like Amy said, if people have specific questions about certain numbers, maybe coming to the table with questions over those specific numbers, because to go through it line by line or account by account at this point, I feel like we did that, and I know, Will, that you wanted to go through it more thoroughly before that big meeting, and a lot of things have happened this year. But, I mean, if we have questions at this point, maybe it's putting those few questions together over particular numbers. I feel like we kind of went through everything and had the opportunity to ask those department heads those questions the day that we had everybody in front of us. That's all for me. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, I understand you're really busy. If you have time to especially highlight some areas that are really concerning of you, that would be great.
I'll at least try to get that back out and make sure that every member's got the sheet that I ended up taking and putting a column for our recommendations. I mean,
but if you have some real concern areas, I mean, I think all of us are open to hearing them. So.
Yeah, because it could
Absolutely.
concern in the same area. But at least if we see what you put down, Will, and send out the sheet, we can kind of quickly go through it on our own too. And if there are, one or two specific areas, then it'll narrow it down a lot versus a long meeting of only doing of every single one. There may be only a couple accounts that people have questions about.
Right.
I agree.
All right. So if that's everything for this week, again, Will, just let me know if the 30th works for you or not. Again, I think it's very important that you're there for this budget discussion. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Everybody have a good night.